The bright screen flashed with strange patterns that Dr. Lisa Montgomery had never seen before. She rubbed her tired eyes and looked again at the data coming from the deep space sensors. For 3 years she had led NASA's Deep Space Research division, but nothing prepared her for what she was seeing now. "Hey Jack, come look at this," she called to her assistant. Jack Wright hurried over, coffee mug in hand. His eyes widened as he studied the screen. "Those signals. They're not random," he whispered. "That's a pattern. That's communication." Lisa nodded slowly. "And it's coming from just beyond Neptune's orbit. Whatever it is, it's in our solar system already." Within hours, the discovery reached the highest levels of government. By the next day, every major news network on Earth buzzed with the same headline: "We are not alone." Captain John Martinez stood tall as he received his orders directly from the president. At 42, his dark hair showed touches of gray at the temples, but his eyes remained sharp and focused. As commander of the UES Defender, the flagship of the United Earth Defense Fleet, he would lead humanity's first diplomatic mission to meet the aliens. "This is what we've trained for," he told his crew as they prepared for launch. "First contact. We represent all of humanity now." Lieutenant Peter Collins, the ship's young communications officer, looked nervous. "Do you think they're friendly, sir?" Martinez gave a small smile. "Let's hope so, Lieutenant. Let's hope so." The Defender and 2 escort ships left Earth orbit 3 days later. They traveled to the coordinates where the alien signals originated. What they found there made even the seasoned Captain Martinez catch his breath. The alien ship dwarfed anything humans had ever built. It gleamed like polished obsidian against the blackness of space, stretching nearly 2 miles from end to end. Smaller ships surrounded it like remoras around a shark. "Open a channel," Martinez ordered. "All frequencies, universal greeting message." Minutes later, they received a response. The view screen showed a tall humanoid figure with gray-blue skin and eyes like liquid silver. Intricate patterns covered its face and neck. "I am Lord Krell, ambassador of the Zornaxian Galactic Empire," the alien said in perfect English. "We have studied your transmissions and learned your languages. We come to welcome Earth into our protection." The meeting that followed seemed promising at first. The Zornaxians requested permission to send representatives to Earth. World leaders agreed, and a historic summit was arranged in Geneva. Professor Alan Blackwell watched the broadcasts with growing unease. As the leading researcher in dark matter physics at Stanford University, he understood power. And everything about the Zornaxians spoke of power, their advanced technology, their massive ships, their very demeanor. "They're not showing all their cards," he told his daughter Samantha as they watched the news together. At 28, Samantha had followed in her father's footsteps, earning her PhD in quantum physics. "You're just being paranoid, Dad," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. In Geneva, the truth finally emerged. Lord Krell stood before the United Nations and activated a holographic display showing hundreds of worlds. "These are the current protectorates of the Zornaxian Empire," he announced. "Earth will be the newest addition. Your resources and people will serve the greater glory of the Empire. In return, you receive our protection and guidance. This is not a negotiation. This is your new reality." The shock that rippled through the assembly quickly turned to anger. "Earth is a sovereign planet," the Secretary General responded firmly. "We do not accept your terms. We welcome peaceful relations as equals, not as subjects." Lord Krell's silver eyes narrowed. "Perhaps you misunderstand your situation. Allow me to clarify." He pressed a device on his wrist. Moments later, feeds from space showed multiple Zornaxian warships emerging from what appeared to be tiers in space itself. "We currently have weapons locked on your lunar colony," Krell stated calmly. 3,000 of your people live there. Their lives depend on your next words." The Secretary General stood his ground. "We will not be threatened. Earth does not respond to—" A flash of light interrupted him. On the screens, the lunar colony disappeared in a blinding explosion. Where humanity's first permanent off-world settlement had stood, only dust and debris remained. Horror filled the assembly hall. 3,000 lives snuffed out in an instant. Professor Blackwell and Samantha watched from his laboratory, tears streaming down their faces. Many of their colleagues and friends had been stationed on the moon. "You have 1 Earth week to prepare for full integration into the Empire," Lord Krell announced before leaving the stunned assembly. Emergency meetings filled the days that followed. Military options were considered and quickly dismissed. Human weapons were no match for the aliens' technology. Some nations suggested surrender to save lives. Others called for resistance at any cost. In his lab beneath Stanford University, Professor Blackwell pulled out research files he had kept hidden for years. His theoretical work on manipulating dark matter had been deemed too dangerous by many of his peers. Now those dangerous ideas might be humanity's only hope. He called an old friend, General Frank Nelson, who now served on the newly formed Earth Defense Council. "Frank, I might have something," Blackwell said, his voice low even though the line was secure. "My dark matter research, the principles I've been working on, they could be weaponized." "How long would it take?" the general asked. "With full resources? Maybe a year, maybe less if we get lucky." "We don't have a year, Alan. Then we need to make the Zornaxians think we've surrendered while we work. Buy time. Every day matters now." General Nelson was silent for a moment. "I'll take it to the council. Can you prepare a presentation?" "I'll be ready in 3 hours." After hanging up, Blackwell turned to find Samantha standing in the doorway of his office. "I heard," she said. "You're going to fight back." "We all are," he replied. "If this works, we'll need every physicist we can get." The next day, as Professor Blackwell presented his theories to the Earth Defense Council, the president addressed the world. She announced that Earth would cooperate with the Zornaxian Empire while secretly authorizing Project Umbra, the most ambitious and desperate scientific undertaking in human history. While Zornaxian ships took positions around Earth, teams of scientists were quietly gathered. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a massive laboratory complex was rapidly constructed. Equipment was moved under cover of night. The best minds on the planet converged with a single purpose: turning Professor Blackwell's theories into a weapon that could save humanity. The race against time had begun, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, the answer waited, in the invisible matter that made up most of the universe, but that humans had barely begun to understand. Dark matter. Humanity's last hope. 1 year passed since the Zornaxians had taken control of Earth's outer solar system. On the surface, humanity appeared to accept their role as the newest protectorate of the vast alien empire. Zornaxian ships patrolled Earth's orbit. Alien. Officials occupied key government buildings in major cities. Resources flowed outward to feed the Empire's endless hunger. But deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, hidden from the watchful eyes of their occupiers, humanity prepared its response. Dr. Olivia Winters wiped sweat from her brow as she studied the complex equations filling the holographic display. As the lead theoretical physicist of Project Umbra, she worked 18-hour days trying to solve the puzzle of dark matter manipulation. The simulation failed again, she told Professor Blackwell, who stood beside her. His hair had grown more gray in the past year, his face more lined with worry. "We're close," Blackwell insisted. "The field almost stabilized that time. Let's adjust the containment parameters." The underground complex bustled with activity around them. Over 300 scientists and engineers worked in the massive facility, all with the same goal: turning Blackwell's theories into a weapon that could drive away the Zornaxians. In another section of the complex, Major William Hayes reviewed security protocols with his team. A career military intelligence officer, Hayes now led the most important covert operation in human history. "The Zornaxians are increasing their scans of the mountain range," he informed his officers. "We need to be extra careful with supply movements. Nothing in or out without triple verification." Getting equipment and people into the facility without detection grew harder each week. The Zornaxians were not fools. They sensed something was happening but couldn't pinpoint what or where. "We intercepted communications suggesting they plan to establish a new outpost near Denver," Lieutenant Nancy Ellis reported. "That would Put their sensors too close for comfort. Hayes nodded grimly. Then we need to speed up the timeline. Tell Dr. Blackwell we may not have as much time as we thought. In the main laboratory, Blackwell and Dr. Winters made a breakthrough that evening. Their latest simulation showed a stable dark matter manipulation field for the first time. "It's working," Dr. Winters exclaimed, her tired eyes suddenly wide with excitement. "The null zone is holding steady." Blackwell studied the readings with caution. "Let's run a physical test, something small." They prepared a test chamber the size of a closet, lined with every type of shielding they could devise. The entire team gathered to watch from behind thick protective glass. Initiating dark matter field in 3, 2, 1. Dr. Winters activated the device. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, in the center of the chamber, the air appeared to ripple like heat waves rising from hot pavement. A sphere of absolute darkness formed, about the size of a basketball. "Null zone established," Blackwell said, checking instruments. "Perfect containment." They sent a remote-controlled drone into the chamber. As it approached the dark sphere, its front edge simply vanished. No explosion, no sound, just gone, as if that part of reality had been erased. "The matter isn't being destroyed in the conventional sense," Dr. Winters explained to the observers. "The dark matter field creates a zone where normal physics breaks down. Atomic bonds simply stop working." The implications were immediately clear to everyone watching. They had created the ultimate weapon. That night, the Earth Defense Council convened via secure channels to view the test results. Military leaders saw the potential immediately. "How quickly can we weaponize this?" General Nelson asked. "We can build delivery systems within 2 months," Blackwell replied. "But there are serious concerns." Dr. Daniel Rodriguez, the ethical oversight officer for Project Umbra, spoke up. "This technology could destabilize the fabric of space-time itself if used improperly. We're talking about a weapon that doesn't just destroy matter, it removes it from existence." "Do we have a choice?" asked the president. "The Zornaxians killed 3,000 of our people as a demonstration. They've stripped our resources and treated us like slaves for a year." Lieutenant Catherine Morgan, a young weapons specialist, joined the discussion. "We can mount the devices on stealth ships, target their fleet first, then their bases on Europa and Titan, show them what happens when they mess with Earth." The room fell silent as they considered the gravity of the decision before them. "If we use this weapon," Rodriguez warned, "we change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. We become the species that weaponized dark matter. Are we ready for that responsibility?" Blackwell looked troubled. "There might be unforeseen consequences. The null zones might grow beyond our control. And if we do nothing," General Nelson countered, "we remain slaves forever, or until they decide Earth is no longer useful." After hours of debate, the vote came, 11-3, in favor of weaponizing the dark matter technology. As the meeting ended, Samantha Blackwell approached her father. She had spent the past year helping perfect the containment systems for the dark matter fields. "I want to lead the first strike team," she said firmly. Her father stared at her in shock. "Sam, no, it's too dangerous. We don't know all the effects yet." "I understand the technology better than almost anyone except you and Dr. Winters," she countered. "And I was a pilot before I was a physicist. I'm the logical choice." Before Professor Blackwell could argue further, Major Hayes joined them. "She's right. We need someone who understands both the weapon and combat operations. I've reviewed her flight records. She's perfect for this." Blackwell looked from Hayes to his daughter, seeing the determination in her eyes. Finally, he nodded, his heart heavy with fear. The next day, preparation for the counterattack began in earnest. Engineers worked around the clock to install dark matter generators on the 3 experimental stealth ships that had been built in secret lunar caves on the far side of the moon. Dr. Winters led the team designing safety protocols. If the null zone starts to expand beyond parameters, the self-destruct will activate automatically. We can't risk letting this get out of control. Major Hayes selected and trained the crews. Each ship would carry 5 people: a pilot, weapons, officer, engineer, and 2 scientists to monitor the dark matter technology. Samantha Blackwell was assigned as commander of the lead ship, designated Alpha. As she studied the mission plans, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. "If this works," Lieutenant Ellis told her during training, "you'll be remembered as the person who saved Earth. And if it doesn't," Samantha replied quietly, "there might not be anyone left to remember at all." 1 month later, with Zornaxian patrols increasing and suspicions growing, the Earth Defense Council gave the final authorization. Operation Twilight would commence in 48 hours. The counterattack was about to begin. Humanity's darkest weapon would soon be unleashed upon the stars. The 3 stealth ships detached from their hidden docking stations on the far side of the moon. They moved silently, their hulls covered with materials that absorbed rather than reflected light. No radar could detect them, no scanner could identify them. They were ghosts moving through the void of space. Commander Samantha Blackwell sat in the pilot's seat of the lead ship, now named USS Defiance. She checked the systems one final time before speaking into her communications unit. "Strike. Team Alpha ready for jump," she reported. "All systems green." Vice Admiral Gregory Palmer's voice came through from Earth Command, hidden deep beneath the Arizona desert. "You are cleared for jump, Commander. Good hunting." Samantha looked at her crew. Lieutenant Ben Powell at Weapons Control. Engineer Susan Wright monitoring the ship's systems. Dr. Paul Rivera and Dr. Heather Grant watching over the dark matter generator that took up nearly a third of their small vessel. "This is it," Samantha told them. "Remember your training. If anything goes wrong with the generator, we evacuate immediately and trigger the self-destruct." The 3 ships accelerated to jump speed. Their destination, Europa, one of Jupiter's moons where the Zornaxians had established their main base in the solar system. The journey took 18 hours. As they approached Jupiter's massive form, they received the latest intelligence from Earth. Zornaxian patrols have increased in the past 12 hours. Major Hayes informed them through the secure channel. They suspect something, but don't know what. Your window of opportunity may be shorter than planned. Samantha acknowledged the message and updated her team. "We'll have to move faster. New plan. We deploy as soon as we're in range." The Defiance led the small fleet around the edge of Jupiter's upper atmosphere, using its gravity to slingshot them toward Europa. The icy moon grew larger in their viewports. "Zornaxian base detected," Lieutenant Powell announced. "I count 15 ships docked at their facility." "Perfect," Samantha replied. "That's most of their solar system fleet in one place." She opened a channel to the other 2 ships. "Strike Team Beta and Gamma, maintain position. Alpha will deploy the first device. If successful, you'll target the secondary locations as planned." The Defiance moved into position, 200 miles above the Zornaxian base. Dr. Rivera activated the dark matter generator. The ship hummed as power flowed into the device. "Dark matter field forming," Dr. Grant reported. "Containment stable." Samantha took a deep breath. "Deploy the package." Lieutenant Powell pressed the launch control. A small probe shot from the Defiance, carrying the dark matter device directly toward the Zornaxian base. "Probe on target," he confirmed. "Impact in 30 seconds. The crew watched their screens in silence. When the counter reached 0, there was no explosion, no flash of light. Instead, a perfect sphere of absolute darkness appeared on Europa's surface, centered on the Zornaxian base. "Null zone established," Dr. Grant said, checking her instruments. 1 mile radius, exactly as calculated. Through their long-range cameras, they watched as the Zornaxian buildings, ships, and all matter within the zone simply ceased to exist. The sphere of darkness held for exactly 2 minutes, then collapsed in on itself and vanished, leaving only a perfectly hemispherical crater in Europa's icy surface. "It worked," Samantha whispered, almost unable to believe it. "The entire base is gone." Lieutenant Powell studied his scanners. "I'm detecting Zornaxian communications going crazy. They have no idea what hit them." Samantha opened the channel. To the other ships. "Beta team, proceed to Titan and deploy. Gamma team, target their fleet near Mars." The counterattack continued. Within hours, 3 more Zornaxian installations disappeared into dark matter null zones. The alien force that had seemed invincible just days before now scrambled in confusion and fear. Back on Earth, Vice Admiral Palmer watched the feeds with the Earth Defense Council. For the first time since the occupation began, hope filled the room. The Zornaxians are pulling their ships back to defensive positions, an intelligence officer reported. They're abandoning their outposts on Earth. They don't understand what's happening, General Nelson said, and fear of the unknown is our greatest advantage right now. The president nodded. Transmit the message to their command ship as planned. In orbit around Earth, the massive Zornaxian command vessel received the transmission. Lord Krell watched as the human president appeared on his screen. 1 year ago, you demonstrated your power by destroying our lunar colony, she said calmly. Today, we have demonstrated ours. Your bases on Europa, Titan, and your fleet near Mars have been removed from existence. Not destroyed, erased completely. Lord Krell's silver eyes widened. His subordinates frantically checked their data feeds, confirming the impossible news. What you have witnessed is our ability to create dark matter null zones, the president continued. Areas where matter simply ceases to exist. We can create these zones anywhere in the solar system, perhaps anywhere in the galaxy. She leaned forward. You have 2 hours to begin evacuating your forces from Earth and our solar system. Any Zornaxian ships remaining after that time will be erased. The transmission ended. Lord Krell stood motionless for several moments before turning to his second-in-command. Contact the Imperial Council immediately, he ordered. Tell them the humans have weaponized dark matter. The news spread quickly through the Zornaxian fleet. Within minutes, ships began breaking orbit, retreating from Earth at maximum speed. Commander Blackwell and her team watched from the Defiance as the Zornaxian vessels fled. They're running, Lieutenant Powell said with a grin. Don't celebrate. Yet, Samantha cautioned. They'll be back. This is just the beginning. She was right. As the Defiance and its sister ships returned to Earth, they received troubling news from Europa. The crater left by the dark matter device was growing. The null zone was supposed to collapse completely, Dr. Rivera said, studying the data. But there's still activity. The effect is spreading. Dr. Grant ran calculations. At the current rate, it could consume all of Europa within a month. Samantha opened a channel to Earth Command. We have a problem. The dark matter effect isn't stopping. We need to find a way to contain it, or we might have traded one disaster for another. As the Defiance approached Earth, they saw Zornaxian ships still departing in all directions. Humanity had won its first victory. But the dark matter technology that saved them might yet prove to be a threat greater than the Zornaxians themselves. In his laboratory, Professor Blackwell received the data from Europa. His face grew pale as he realized what was happening. We've opened a door we don't know how to close, he told Dr. Winters. If that null zone keeps growing, it won't stop at Europa. It could threaten the entire solar system. The celebration of humanity's first victory was cut short by this new danger. Even as the Zornaxians retreated, Earth faced a new challenge, controlling the very weapon that had given them their freedom. Word of humanity's dark matter weapon spread quickly through the galaxy. The Zornaxian Empire controlled over 300 worlds, and on each one, the news caused different reactions. Some species trembled in fear at the power humans had unleashed. Others saw hope for the first time in generations. On Earth, the initial celebration of the Zornaxians' retreat quickly turned to worry. Scientists worked around the clock monitoring the growing null zone on Europa. It's expanded another 10 miles. Since yesterday, Dr. Winters reported to the Earth Defense Council. The holographic display showed the perfect black hemisphere eating into Europa's surface. At this rate, the entire moon will be gone within 3 weeks. Professor Blackwell pointed to another section of data. And we've detected similar growth patterns at the other deployment sites, smaller but still growing. The president looked grim. What are our options? We're working on a containment field, Dr. Winters explained. But we need time. Before they could discuss further, alarms sounded throughout the command center. General Nelson checked the incoming signal. Multiple Zornaxian warships just appeared, At the edge of the solar system, he announced. Much larger than anything we've seen before. This looks like their main battle fleet. Vice Admiral Palmer studied the tactical display. They're on an attack vector. Estimated time to Earth orbit, 6 hours. The president's face hardened. They're not coming to negotiate. They're coming to end this before word spreads further. Outside the command center, Commander Samantha Blackwell met with her strike team. All 3 stealth ships had returned safely to Earth after their successful mission. Now they faced an even bigger challenge. We have 6 hours to prepare for another deployment, she told her crew. The Zornaxians are sending everything they have at us. Lieutenant Powell looked at the data on his tablet. Our dark matter generators need at least 8 hours to recharge. They'll be here before we're ready. Engineer Wright had an idea. What if we don't need a full charge? We could create smaller null zones, target their command ships only. Samantha nodded. Get Dr. Rivera and Dr. Grant on that. We need options. Meanwhile, in another part of the complex, Lieutenant Christopher Lee studied recordings of Zornaxian technology. As an expert in alien systems, he had been analyzing everything. They could capture about Zornaxian science. Wait, he said suddenly, rewinding the footage from Europa. Look at this. The video showed the moments before the null zone was deployed. The Zornaxian base had been surrounded by a strange energy field. That's some kind of containment system, Lee realized. They were experimenting with something similar to our dark matter technology. They have containment fields. He rushed his findings to Major Hayes, who immediately brought him to the Earth Defense Council. The Zornaxians might already have the technology we need to contain the null zones, Lieutenant Lee explained. Their research base on Ganymede was working on similar energy fields. Major Hayes saw the opportunity immediately. We need to raid that base, get their containment technology before they reach Earth. The president gave immediate approval. Take whatever you need. This is our top priority. Within an hour, Major Hayes assembled a small team including Lieutenant Lee and Dr. Rivera. They boarded the fastest ship available, a modified interceptor, and launched toward Jupiter's system. Back on Earth, preparation for the coming battle continued. Professor Blackwell worked with Dr. Winters to modify the remaining dark matter devices. If we can't stop the Zornaxian fleet, he said, we need a final option. Dr. Winters looked up from her work. You mean a planet killer? Blackwell nodded solemnly. If we deploy a null zone at the right coordinates between here and the Zornaxian homeworld, we create a barrier they can't cross without being erased from existence. That would cut off Earth from the rest of the galaxy, Dr. Winters pointed. Out. Better isolated than enslaved, Blackwell replied. But it's only our last resort. The hours ticked by. Major Hayes' team reached Ganymede and began their covert operation to infiltrate the Zornaxian research base. Commander Blackwell and her crews prepared the stealth ships with partially charged dark matter generators. Earth's conventional military forces moved into defensive positions, knowing they stood little chance against the coming armada. 4 hours after the first alert, humanity received an unexpected message. It came not from the approaching Zornaxian fleet, but from dozens of other worlds across the galaxy. We stand with Earth, the message declared. The time of Zornaxian oppression ends now. A coalition of species, all former protectorates of the Empire, had risen up against their oppressors. The news of human resistance and the dark matter weapon had ignited a galaxy-wide rebellion. Vice Admiral Palmer watched the reports flood. And the Zornaxians are fighting on multiple fronts now. Their resources are divided. On Ganymede, Major Hayes' team fought their way through surprised Zornaxian guards. Lieutenant Lee accessed their research computers while Dr. Rivera examined their containment technology. This is it, Lee exclaimed. They've been working on dark matter containment for decades. Dr. Rivera studied the devices quickly. We can adapt this to seal the null zones. We need to get this back to Earth immediately. As they loaded the stolen technology onto their ship, they received urgent news from Earth Command. The expanding null zone on Europa had reached a critical threshold. It was beginning to affect Jupiter's gravitational field. If that disruption continues, Professor Blackwell explained via transmission, it could destabilize the entire orbit of Jupiter. The effects on our solar system would be catastrophic. Major Hayes's team raced back toward Earth, carrying the only hope of containing the growing threat. Meanwhile, the Zornaxian battle fleet had changed course. Instead of heading directly to Earth, they were moving to engage the human ships monitoring Europa. They're going to try to study the null zone, Samantha realized. They want to understand the weapon before attacking Earth. Vice Admiral Palmer agreed. This gives us more time. The question is, do we use that time to prepare our defense or to solve the Europa problem? The president didn't hesitate. Both. Commander Blackwell, take your ships to intercept the Zornaxian fleet. Keep them away from Europa until Major Hayes returns with the containment technology. Samantha acknowledged the order and prepared her team for battle. As the 3 stealth ships approached Jupiter's orbit, they saw the massive Zornaxian fleet for the first time. Dozens of warships, each larger than anything humans had built, moved in tight formation. Remember, Samantha told her crew, we don't need to destroy them all. We just need to keep them occupied. The USS Defiance and its sister ships activated their dark matter generators. Even at partial power, the weapons could create small null zones capable of erasing a Zornaxian warship from existence. As the Zornaxian fleet detected the approaching human vessels, they broke formation, clearly wary of the dark matter weapon. The battle for the solar system was about to begin. The battle near Jupiter lasted for hours. Commander Samantha Blackwell and her 3 ships darted between the massive Zornaxian vessels, using their stealth technology and speed as their main advantages. Each time they deployed a small, dark matter null zone, a Zornaxian ship vanished from existence. That's their flagship, Lieutenant Powell said, pointing to a vessel 3 times larger than the others. Its hull gleamed with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light of the distant sun. We can't get close enough, Samantha replied. They've surrounded it with a defensive screen. The Defiance shuddered as energy blasts from nearby Zornaxian cruisers struck its shields. Engineer Wright called from the engine room. Shields at 40%. We can't take much more of this. Over the secure channel, Samantha received an update from Earth Command. Major Hayes is returning. With the containment technology, Vice Admiral Palmer informed her. ETA to Europa, 30 minutes. Keep the Zornaxians busy until they conceal that null zone. Understood, Samantha acknowledged. But we're running out of options here. Just then, Dr. Grant noticed something on her scanners. Commander, look. At this energy signature from the Zornaxian flagship, they're preparing some kind of massive weapon. Samantha studied the readings and made a quick decision. All ships pull back. Defensive formation Delta. The 3 human vessels regrouped at a safer distance from the Zornaxian fleet. On their screens, they watched as the alien flagship began to glow with power. They're targeting Europa, Dr. Rivera realized with horror. They're going to try to destroy the null zone with brute force. That's insane, Samantha said. They could trigger a chain reaction that would... Before she could finish, the Zornaxian flagship fired. A beam of blinding energy shot toward Europa, striking the expanding dark matter null zone directly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the null zone pulsed and suddenly expanded, doubling in size in seconds. The perfect black hemisphere now covered nearly half of Europa's surface. The energy fed it, Dr. Grant explained, frantically checking readings. It's growing exponentially now. Major Hayes's ship arrived just in time to witness the disaster unfolding. They docked with the Defiance, transferring the stolen Zornaxian technology. We need to deploy this immediately, Dr. Rivera said, examining the alien containment device. But we'll need to modify it for something this size. While the scientists worked, the Zornaxian fleet fell into disarray. Several ships attempted to flee only to be stopped by their own commanders. Then, a new signal came through on all channels. A Zornaxian appeared on the screens of every ship in the solar system. Unlike the military commanders humans had encountered before, this one wore elaborate robes and decorations that covered most of its blue-gray skin. I am Emperor Zorlak of the Zornaxian Galactic Empire, the alien announced. I command an immediate cessation of hostilities. On Earth, the Defense Council watched in surprise. The Emperor himself, the President murmured, "They're taking this seriously now." On the Defiance, Samantha was more focused on the growing crisis than on diplomatic overtures. "The null zone is still expanding," she told Major Hayes. "If it reaches Jupiter's core, the gravitational disruption could affect Earth's orbit." Dr. Rivera and Lieutenant Lee worked frantically to adapt the Zornaxian containment technology. After 20 tense minutes, they were ready. "We can deploy the containment field," Dr. Rivera announced. "But someone needs to get close enough to the null zone to place these stabilizers at specific coordinates." Everyone in the room knew what that meant. Getting close to the expanding dark matter field was a suicide mission. "I'll do it," Samantha said without hesitation. Her father's voice came through the comm system. Professor Blackwell had been monitoring the situation from Earth. "Sam, no," he pleaded. "There must be another way." "There isn't time, Dad," she replied softly. "You know that." While the Defiance prepared for its dangerous mission, Emperor Zorlak opened communications directly with Earth's leaders. "Your dark matter weapon is beyond anything we have encountered in 50,000 years of Imperial rule," the Emperor admitted. "But you cannot control it. Already it threatens to destroy your solar system." The President responded carefully. "We are deploying containment measures now, but this conversation needs to be about more than just the weapon." "Indeed," Emperor Zorlak agreed. "I come to offer terms of peace, not as conqueror to conquered, but as equal to equal." As the diplomatic exchange continued, Samantha piloted the Defiance toward Europa. The ship carried the modified Zornaxian containment device. "I've programmed the ship to place the stabilizers at precise coordinates," Dr. Rivera explained. "Once they're in position, we activate the containment field remotely." "And if it works?" Major Hayes asked. "The null zone should gradually collapse back in on itself," Dr. Rivera said. "But there are no guarantees." Samantha guided the ship closer to Europa's dark surface. The null zone loomed before them, a perfect hemisphere of absolute nothingness that seemed to swallow all light. "Approaching deployment range," she announced. "Preparing to launch stabilizers." One by one, the stabilizers launched from the ship, positioning themselves around the perimeter of the null zone. As the final one moved into place, Samantha found herself dangerously close to the expanding darkness. "All stabilizers in position," she reported. "Ready for activation." From a safe distance, Dr. Rivera pressed the command. Energy surged from the stabilizers, creating a web of light that surrounded the null zone. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then slowly the expansion stopped. "It's working," Dr. Grant exclaimed. "The null zone is stabilizing." Samantha tried to pull the ship away, but it was too late. The edge of the null zone touched the Defiance's rear section. "Engine failure," she reported calmly. "I'm losing control." On Earth, Professor Blackwell watched the feeds in horror as his daughter's ship drifted closer to the darkness. "Get out of there," he cried. "Eject." But there was no response. The Defiance disappeared into the null zone, taking Commander Samantha Blackwell with it. Hours later, as the containment field fully stabilized and the null zone began to shrink, Emperor Zorlak met with Earth's leaders at the rebuilt lunar colony. It was a symbolic choice, meeting at the site where the conflict had begun 1 year earlier. "We recognize Earth and all former protectorates as sovereign and independent," the Emperor declared. "In exchange, we ask that the dark matter technology be sealed away, never to be used again." Professor Blackwell, his face lined with grief for his daughter, spoke up. "The technology is too dangerous for anyone to possess. We've learned that now. But sealing it away isn't enough. We need to work together to understand it, to ensure it never threatens the galaxy again." The peace agreement that followed became known as the Lunar Accord. Earth formed the Galactic Freedom Coalition with other liberated species. Dr. Winters headed the new Galactic Scientific Exchange Program. Major Hayes and Lieutenant Lee led peacekeeping forces to help newly liberated worlds establish their independence, and deep in space at the edge of what once was Europa, a monument was built, a simple plaque in the emptiness of space, dedicated to Commander Samantha Blackwell and the crew of the USS Defiance. The dark matter technology was sealed in a vault beneath the Rocky Mountains, guarded by an international committee led by Dr. Rodriguez. The knowledge remained, but the weapon would never be used again. 1 month after the peace treaty, as Professor Blackwell stood alone in his laboratory, a message arrived. It contained only coordinates in deep space and 2 words, "Still here." Hope flared in the professor's heart. Perhaps, in the strange physics of the null zone, something of his daughter remained. Perhaps, someday, she would find her way home. But that was a story for another day. For now, humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest, but by showing both the power to fight and the wisdom to make peace.